Hi everyone, it's Rob Watson, the module leader for TECH1502, and this is the video summary introduction to the 17th lecture for the module, and it's about, the topic this week is about the idea of critical thinking. And what I'm going to do there's a couple of lectures that I'm going to do. I've brought these forward from when I'd planned to do them. I'd originally planned to do them after Easter, but I thought it was really useful for us to kind of bring this forward, so it gives us more time to focus when we're thinking about the report that you're going to produce for the final piece of coursework D, which is worth 50% of the assessment. And the importance that is attached to this process is the idea of, what are the thinking skills? We've been doing a lot of work in our lab groups and our workshop sessions about what we do with community media. The other side of the coin, if you like, is what we can think about and what we can conceptually develop as a set of skills and ideas that deal with problems and social situations and processes that drive social change, which is kind of what we're trying to anticipate in our the steps forward through the academic process. Excuse me. So what this lecture will cover are issues and ideas to do with our thinking processes. So we'll do a lecture on critical thinking, reflexive and critical thinking. We'll do a lecture on report writing and what the expectations are for how reports are worked and structured. And we'll do a lecture on evidence gathering. And these lectures, they will stand through your further studies. So each year this process is reinforced. This is core to the academic process. So the idea is that we introduce these terms and these words and these concepts this year, and then we reinforce it next year, and then we explore it in more detail the year after that as well. So don't think and feel that you have to know everything about this at this point. This is, there's an end point when you graduate. Now, a useful way to think about this is, we've talked about literacies, about the kind of skills and thinking skills that people need to know. So the aim of our report that you're going to produce is about, what are those kind of skills, what are those kind of literacies that people need to engage with in order to be able to develop a sense of independent capability for working with media that they produce themselves. So the focus here in these lectures is to identify what, if you like, the core thinking skills might be and how we can approach them. So one of the kind of standard ways to think about critical thinking is to identify what that means in terms of its elements, such as analysis, drawing, making an evaluation based on inferences that you've drawn, and producing, if you like, a plausible explanation. So something which is based on interpretation, as all argument, logical, scientific argument is based. It's an interpretative process. And what that means is that we have to provide evidence in order to justify and make our claims plausible. So what is the process that we need to go to structure those kind of arguments and discussions? What is it that we need to think about that will enable us to channel and separate and sort, what is relevant from what's not relevant? So the best way to think about this, I think we maybe touched on this, is really about the idea of cause and effect and the difference. We often make an assumption that what we see and what we encounter in our lives has an origin, a cause that we can easily point to. So we see something in the world around us, and we say, well, that was caused by this. But that's not the investigative process. That's not the critical thinking process, and it's not the scientific process. The scientific process is to say, well, we have to separate cause from effect from our assumptions, and we have to use our observations and our experiments and our testing to establish if that cause and effect relationship is valid or not. So we are looking at separating cause from effect. So we might make the argument, as we have done in the module, is to say that the cause of community media's relative low status in the wider media ecology is due to neoliberal financial and political policies. that is making a cause and effect link. And that is exactly what we need to break and investigate. So the argument is that our critical thinking is about exploring the gap between the two, so that we're not saying that X plus Y equals Z. What we're saying is, well, what's going on at this plus point, and is this X and Y, are they related? Are they something that produced Z, or is something else going on? And it might be that X plus Y is producing Z, but it might be that it's not. And that's what we have to be open to the possibility of thinking about. So what we're looking for in this is a kind of set of processes that we can follow, a kind of set of templates or approaches that we can, methodologies as it's called, which give us an opportunity to ask questions, but to examine things in a way which we can find a productive and practical use for. So we're not just pontificating on the basis of theorizing grand schemes, but we're actually engaging in something which we will find useful in order to be able to promote a social change on the basis of a more harmonious, more engaged, more equitable distribution of social resources, but not based on making stereotypical assumptions about what causes things. So we're going to look through this in terms of the kind of the patterns of thinking that are associated with critical thinking, but we're really thinking about this in terms of how do we build our capability for thinking. And a really good way to think about this, and I think we might have mentioned this at some point, is the idea of kind of, you know, once you graduate and you're working in a job, maybe in 10 years' time, you're reaching the point in your career where you are going to be arriving at senior positions, where you've got experience and you've got qualification and you've been tested through the job, and you could be running your own company or working for another company. You could be in the teaching profession, something like that, where you then start to get involved in the process of recruitment for new recruits coming through that you want to work with you. So the question is, in 10 years' time, you know, what do we need to be teaching the teachers now or the next? What do the teachers need to know in order to produce graduates, for us to have graduates who graduate in 10 years' time, who are able to fulfill the needs that we imagine or envisage that we will need in 10 years' time? And we don't know what a lot of those are. So our thinking skills and our thinking patterns are based on the idea of trying to anticipate change, and some of that is positive, some of that might be negative, some of which is intended and some of which is unintended. How do we construct, if you like, or how do we put in place a framework which helps us to think through those problems? That is the academic process. That's the process that will lead you through the rest of your career, because you're able not just to press buttons and do as you're told, and not just solve problems, but pose problems. And the future is set, I think, for the people who are the problem posers, the people who identify the next set of problems and issues that we need to deal with. And that's what we want to draw. Now, this is the first time you're doing this in any kind of depth, if you like. So this is the first opportunity that you get to have a go. And you know, you might be suited to it, you might be, you know, better suited to other ways of working, but we'll try and draw it together in a way that you can get some practical benefit from this, rather than it just being a kind of abstract theoretical approach. Right, the notes are up and available on the DMU Commons wiki. Just go to wiki.our.dmu.ac.uk, look for the TECH1502 section. If you want to carry on the conversation and the discussion, if you want to share any examples, if you want to make any comments, go to DMU Talk at talk.our.dmu.ac.uk, and don't forget that you can use the discourse platform which Talk runs on. You can get that on the Apple App Store and the Android App Store, so that you can use it on your phone as well. So I'll see you at the lecture.